Well, thank you very much. I'm actually going to end up saying a lot of things that have already been covered, particularly by David and Kate. You will recognise some common themes. You won't get anything nearly as poetic as that extraordinary performance from Greer. That was just amazing. I will, however, start, if I can, with a quote from William Butler Yeats, just to explain a little bit about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. Young people are nothing if not the embodiment of their dreams. It is an extraordinary privilege to walk alongside them as they come to realise who they are, to start making choices about what they want to do and where they're going to go. I don't believe in the generation gap. I believe that the people that we're looking after are our younger brothers and sisters. And if you come at it from that perspective, they are not someone or something to be cured. There is nothing wrong with them. They are just people trying to work out life the best way they can. And as I get older, that period of adolescence in terms of the people that I care for is getting older. So pretty much anyone who's 40 or under falls into this category as far as I'm concerned. Hope is one of those really easy things to do. There just isn't enough of it. I can't protect young people from the things that are going to happen in their life. I can't stop their parents from divorcing. I can't stop them being let down. I can't stop sickness happening to them. If you will, they're like the stars in the sky. I can't do anything about them. I can help them create a narrative about those stars. I can help them create a constellation that is perhaps a little different than the one that they automatically leap to. And one of the challenges about being young is that you tend to err towards being very black and white. So the language is everybody's doing it, nobody understands me. It's all a conversation of absolutes. It's very black and white, it's binary. And as an adult in their world, one of our jobs is to come alongside them and go, you know what? It's not always that black and white. There are sometimes nuances. There are actually different ways that you can tell the story. And so hope is nothing more than a narrative. It's a narrative that says, you know, it's not the end. There is always another way. There are always choices that you have here. And you're having and presenting hope to little people who don't necessarily see that. They often have a sense of knowing, of absolutism, but they're not right. And by this I mean they're often clever, but they're not necessarily wise. So how we deal with them, you don't treat them like fools because they're often very, very clever people, but you are respectful of them and you help them with wisdom. St. Augustine wrote this beautiful quote, "For it is one thing to see the land of peace from a wooded ridge and another to walk the path that leads there." Vision is a wonderful thing, to know where you're going and to know your destination, but it is a greater joy to be able to go on the journey with people as they work out where they're going and what they're doing. It's not dissimilar to being a barrier that Greer was talking about in terms of protecting young people as they are in that vulnerable stage of working out who they are and what they're doing in life. We do that journey day by day. We do it step by step, and we do it heartbeat by heartbeat. There is nothing mass-produced about looking after adolescents. Every single one of them is about a relationship that you have with them. It's about conversations that you engage with them. It's about walking alongside them when times are going well, but also when times are going tough. Hope is the great constant in the narrative that we have with these kids. We need to be for them a voice when they cannot speak. We need to be able to recognise what is going on in their world without words and be able to come alongside them and support them. If you want to change the world, if you really want to be able to have an influence on this next generation, you have got to engage in the world. You cannot isolate yourself. You cannot do it from an ivory tower. You cannot do it from the walls within inside a church. You have to engage. If you're going to engage, you have to be real. There's no point being out in the world and living in a parallel universe. The world to these young people is very real. It is their world. You have to know it. You have to not be judging it. You've got to be understanding what is going on in it. And if you want to be real, you've got to be kind. Kindness is one of the greatest currencies I know. And really, I look at hope and I think hope is nothing but words and actions. It's kindness in words, it's kindness in actions. And if you can do that, most people are quite capable of working out their life for themselves. But it is understanding that kindness is a great currency. So let me explain about my world. I predominantly deal with young women these days. I have taught all boys, I have taught co-ed, and I have taught girls. Girls now are the best educated women in history. So if I default to, in a sense, talking about women, please understand that I'm also mostly talking about men as well. They are the best educated women in history. Women have never been as well educated as they are today, and the education in Australia is actually one of the best education systems in the world. We are raising them to believe, because I know they can do absolutely anything they want to do. So we're trying to create opportunities for them and helping them with their narrative and understanding that they can do whatever they want to do. It is their choice. People don't make those choices for them. But it is a tough time for them as well. So while children have always been the way they are, wildly and magnificently egocentric, and we're all just bit players on their stage, make no mistake, the context with which it is all playing out now is complex. So I look at it and I go, the gender gap is growing. We know that. We know that the percentage of women on boards is now 9% and it continues to decline. We know that women who speak up, like Gillian Triggs, Julia Gillard, will get absolutely vilified and predominantly based on their personal appearance. We know that people like Alan Jones advocate that women, when they stand up in leadership roles, are destroying the joint. And we know that this is not unusual. I can give you examples of the first women physicians in America and what they had to go through to be able to make changes. Within Australia, Deborah Laurie in the mid-1970s was the first woman to try and challenge to become a commercial pilot. And even in the 1970s, the reasons given were that during her menstrual cycle, she would be unstable, that you needed strength to fly a plane, even though in fact you don't, and that she emotionally would disrupt how the all-male crews were working. So we know that in particular, women have always faced obstacles in terms of being able to get ahead and do things. It's how do you go about creating a different narrative so that there is hope for young people and hope for young women about what they're going to do. I want to read you an excerpt, if I could. It was written about 8 years ago by a 16-year-old girl who describes what it is like from her perspective about the world. Our parents can send us to school, but they can't make us study. They can approve or disapprove of our friendships, but they can't choose our friends. They can give us all the instruction they like, but the big decisions, the important decisions, now rest with us. Will we drink and how much? Who we date, who we listen to, who we follow and where they take us, whether we light up, whether we inhale, what we get hooked into. Not only are the decisions we make more important than ever before in our lives, the world we're moving in to lead, to take over, is more interesting than ever. We need never go to a library again. The world's knowledge is at our fingertips. And if we want to buy a book, every book that is in print is available to be delivered to my phone. My friends don't need to come over to my place. Wherever they are, they come and see me on Facebook, where I can show them all about me. I can message them instantly. And with my phone, I can record the pictures and the places of my life. In my pocket is more music than my grandparents ever owned, with all their albums and cassettes they played on their big old-fashioned stereo, and more pictures than they've ever had developed. My home movies won't flicker on the wall, they'll flicker YouTube around the world. One day I'll make a Wikipedia entry. I'll live in a world of websites and hyperlinks, and there'll be almost nothing they cannot do for me. And the world we're preparing to enter, to take over, is more challenging, more demanding, more confusing than ever. That is what the baby boomers have left us. The ability to feed the world, but an unwillingness to do it. A war against an enemy unseen. A war not against a nation, but a noun. A war without end. A war that will last our entire lifetime. In a world where the hatreds and passions of thousands of years seem worse than ever, where to be different is to be dangerous. A world going backwards, where nuclear weapons are making a comeback, where babies are born with AIDS, where riot police patrol the summer beaches, where the world's tallest buildings fall to the ground. A world so far removed from the simple early pages of childhood, of bedtime stories and family picnics and people who could look after you and protect you and make everything all right just by saying it was. Never before in human history has a generation of young people moved into adulthood facing a world like this. In Australia, young people went off to war a long way away. Now we're told to expect war here. And you cannot hide in Australia any longer. We are citizens of the planet. It's the community we're a part of. It's where we'll meet people, talk, share and belong. It's where I will live my life. When you listen to this generation speak about what they believe to be the enormity ahead of them, it's easy to appreciate that you can feel overwhelmed by all of this. This gentleman is Martin Seligman. We've talked about him a little earlier. He is an American psychologist. He did father, if you will, the positive psychology movement, although he's moved on a little from that now. He argues that the rate of or chance of getting depression, if you're born around World War I, was about 1%. If you're born around World War II, that percentage increased to 5%. And we're not talking feeling glum, we're talking full-blown, flat on your back, in bed for 2 weeks depression. In the 1960s, it was up to about 10 to 15%, and that's with lives incomplete. And the onset has now dropped from 34 or 35 years of age down to 14, which brings it smack bang into my territory. Humans do not evolve that quickly. This is not biological, this is cultural. So there is something going on here in terms of people's capacity to deal with the world. He talks about people lacking spiritual furniture to fall back in, when there is no longer an extended family network, when people don't go to church anymore, they're no longer part of communities. When things go wrong, they have nothing to fall into, nothing to collect them, nothing to catch them, nothing to protect them. And I can see that in my own experience. I work in a school environment that's incredibly privileged. We are very, very fortunate. I have seen 2 of the worst cases of domestic violence in my entire career this last term. I have had 3 families who've split up and had to take the children and flee the state. I deal with rape, I deal with sexual assault, I deal with suicide, I deal with youth suicide. I have given far too many eulogies at funerals for young people. And all I can do is go up and say, there is another way. Listen to the narrative. There is another story here. It is very, very real. I'm about to show you a video, and unlike my husband, I'm going to give you a warning. You do not have to watch it. It is graphic. But it will give you a sense of what our young girls in particular, but also our young boys are facing. And I'll explain it in a minute. If you don't want to watch it, bear in mind I did show this to the Queen's Club, where the average age, or the ages if you went from 80 to 97, and not one woman blinked. So the challenge is on you. It'll take a little while to come up. The point of this is not anti-men, because I adore men. I love them, just don't quote me out of context. The point of this is to say you cannot be what you cannot see. And if you are not going to be a voice of hope in this next generation, then this is what they are listening to. This is what they are presented with, and I know it because I live it and I breathe it every single day of my life. I deal with the porn sites that the girls put up because they're trying to attract the boys. I deal with the issues where the boys form Facebook groups and they choose a girl and they target them and they write a series of derogatory comments about them. They invite the girl in so she can see it, and then they immediately block her out. So she can't alter or change anything. She just knows it's out there. I deal with the girls who take photos of themselves because their boyfriend has asked for them, and besides, they love that boyfriend. He's going to be with her forever, and then you know what? It breaks up and it goes everywhere, and she's the one that's broken the law because she's transmitted a sexual image of a child under the age, and so it's child pornography. This is what I live and breathe. So that is the narrative, and it is real. So if we do not come up with an alternative narrative, then this is what they think their options are. And so that's why I go, hope is not that hard. Hope is providing an alternative narrative for them so they can make an informed choice about who they are, what they're going to do with their life, who they want to be. If you look now at the abdication of adults in nearly every area, I look at justice over mercy, I look at fear over love, I look at the rate of domestic violence in Australia now that is increasing, so we're up to just under 2 women are dying per week at the hands of their partner. It wasn't that last year. And I look at the people, the institutions, the schools, the churches that are meant to be protecting and meant to be providing hope, and I go, you may not be failing now, but we've failed in the past. How we're dealing with it now as schools and as churches is not helping. So where do these kids go to for a narrative about hope? And I'm going to quote the same quote that Mark quoted about the future. We have to create it. We have to provide the narrative. We have to provide the alternative for people. And it is not going to be out there in policies. It's not going to be out there in programs. It's going to be heartbeat by heartbeat, relationship by relationship, step by step with the young people who are already in your world. It was Margaret Mead who said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. If you look at people who have revolutionised what we have done in this world, Henry Ford, Galileo Galilei, Jesus Christ, Gandhi, they didn't actually dominate the world with a program. They made changes where they were with what they had, where they had been placed. So the ability to create a narrative about hope is with every single one of us here right now in our world. And if we can provide an alternative for our young people as they move forward, then we have a sense of hope. This is my mantra. Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. If you are dealing with young men, here's to strong men. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. Create a message of hope with what you've got, with the people that are already in your world, and we create an alternative narrative to what they already have in front of them. Thank you.